Hello and welcome to the Author Webinar Series, brought to you by the Nonfiction Authors Association and Writers Conference. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you are seeking guidance for your own author journey and want to reach your goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. We look forward to connecting with you and hope you enjoy this webinar.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar series from the Nonfiction Authors Association. This is our first webinar of 2026. Woo! I love a fresh new year. It is my favorite thing to just hit that reset button and feel like a whole year of possibilities ahead. And today we're covering a topic we haven't covered before on a webinar, which is how to promote your book without a platform. And marketing is my favorite thing. So my goal today is that you leave this with at least a couple fresh ideas that you haven't had before. There's a variety of things we're going to go through. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, but both are definitely covered. So depending on your budget, there are options for you and just lots of details. I will share these slides with the recording for those attending live. That will come in your inbox later today. And also I am going to take questions at the end. So if you have questions, you can either hang on to them or please pop them in the Q&A box. It's much easier for me to get through questions if I can find them in Q&A versus the chat that gets super busy. So I look forward to Q&A as well. All right, here we go. So what is platform? You've been hearing this term, I'm sure, in the publishing industry. Platform simply means audience. It's a fancy word for audience. And when you're told that you need a platform by literary agents, editors, media, it really means that you have some sort of following. And that could be from a podcast, from social media. It could be the number of website visitors you're getting, the size of your email list. Maybe you write a column for a large publication. You speak, you do a lot of speaking during the year. Those audiences add up and they count as platform. And that is just the fancy word. And why do publishing industry folks want you to have a platform? It means that you're going to guarantee that you have readers. So for those of you who are maybe seeking a traditional book deal, this is what agents and editors are looking for. They're looking for you to have a built-in audience. So the flip side of that, since the majority of us are self-publishing today, is that maybe you don't need to show off a platform to get a book deal, but it does help you sell books. But in the meantime, maybe as you're building your platform, there are definitely ways you can still sell books without already having a large audience. But part of this whole deal is just that you're going to guarantee sales. So, if you want to rocket your way to a platform, go get yourself on a reality show or grow a killer podcast. Those are the things that help build platform quickly. But this is why publishers give a lot of book deals to celebrities and politicians and reality stars, because they have an audience. But we're not worrying about that today, because you're here because you want to learn how to do this without an audience. And there are definitely ways to do that. So I like to start with community. This chart is what I call your community of influence. It is the people that you know or that you're connected with in some way. It could be peers. It could be people that you worked with. I'm from the Silicon Valley. I worked with people, 25 years ago that I could be reaching out to if I were writing books that fit with tech companies. It could be somebody that you coached Little League with who works in a big company and could bring you in as a speaker. It could be other fellow board members that maybe you serve on a nonprofit or something like that. Certainly, it's email list subscribers, it's influencers that you can connect with. But this is such an important exercise. Please don't skip over it. But here's what we want to look for. Who do we know that can help us with our book promotion in some way? That could be as simple as writing a review on Amazon. It could be booking you as a guest on a podcast, or buying 10 or 20 or 100 copies of your book. So we're starting by looking at our peers, our family, our friends, fellow writers in this community, also your past and present. So clients, coworkers, schoolmates, people you've kept in touch with. This, I thought this image was so funny that I had to include it because it looks like, doesn't it look like the neighbor is hitting on the other neighbor? I just thought it was hilarious. But then there's your larger communities that you may be involved in. So maybe you're a member of some online groups or associations, or you have email subscribers. These, even if your list isn't huge, even 100 email subscribers is a starting point. So those count as well. And then what we're doing once we identify who's in our community is we're figuring out what is the ask. So it could be asking them to share on social media, asking them to write their book reviews on Amazon or Goodreads. Can you tell three friends about the book? Those types of things. Can you go ask for it at your library? I'm going to talk to you more about libraries toward the end of this presentation, but everyone should be marketing to libraries as well. And truly asking your peers to walk into their local library and ask for your book gets your book shelved at libraries for those that with a budget. So mark that down and have your community of influence asking at their local library. And then with influencers, when you can connect with your peers or people who reach your target audience, perhaps they could bring you on their podcast. Maybe they have a blog where they publish excerpts or they do book reviews. Can they share on social media? Can they do a giveaway? There's lots of reasons to reach out. And even if you don't know these folks yet, there are ways that to connect with them, to look for their contact information, are they looking for guests for their podcast? Are they looking for contributions to their blog? And by the way, as you grow in your genre, you want to be connected to your fellow authors. I've been in the publishing community for decades now, and I don't view anyone as competition. I think there's plenty of audience to go around, and I'd much rather connect with my peers and support each other. And so that is something that you can start doing as well. Now, if you have connections with corporations or nonprofits, could they bring you in to do a presentation, whether that's in person or even by Zoom today, right? Can they buy copies of your books? Do they have a podcast or an internal podcast, or would they be willing to bring you in and try out doing a webinar for their employees or their clients? Really, what we want to be looking for are those bulk sales. So corporations and nonprofits potentially have budgets to buy your books. And when I say bulk purchase, it could be 20 copies, it could be 200 copies, it could be 2,000 copies. So start thinking about who you know that could purchase copies of your book to give away to their employees or to their clients. Maybe for an association, your book could be a gift for new members. Maybe it's a free gift with purchase. I wish I could remember the name of the book, but there was an author who had a book on pet care, and they teamed up with a pet food company, and the pet food company was giving away a digital copy of the book with every new pet food purchase. So those are the types of alliances that you can create. Maybe they want to give them out if you're speaking. If you ever speak at any event ever, ask if they have a budget for books. A lot of times, organizations that are hosting large events have a speaker budget, and then they have a separate budget for educational materials. And you won't know unless you ask, because sometimes they forget they have that budget. So even if you're going in to speak for free, you could say, do you have a budget for educational materials? Could you buy some books for the attendees? And you might be surprised when they say yes to that, which is great. And alternatively, of course, you can sell books to attendees at the back of the room, but a bulk sale is always a great win. So here, I'm going to give you homework throughout this presentation, by the way. So my challenge to you is this: to create a spreadsheet and make a list of the people that you know, and then an ask column. What are you going to ask? Are you asking them to buy the books in bulk? Are you asking them to write a review? Are you asking them to make an introduction to someone that would be a great connection for you? This is an exercise I do every time I release a book. I sit down, I go through my emails, I go through my social media contacts. We forget who we know, right? And again, I've been in my industry for 20 plus years. I know a lot of people, and maybe we haven't connected in a few years, but if we have a rapport or we've connected in the past, why wouldn't I want to reach out and connect or offer a review copy, those types of things? So, this is some homework for you. Next up are communities, connecting with larger groups of people. Start by asking what nonprofits reach your target audience. So maybe you have a book on happiness. We have lots of folks in our community writing about mental health and wellness. Maybe you should be teaming up with NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. Maybe you have something that benefits women and you could be working with the domestic violence shelters in your community. And by the way, nonprofits actually have budgets, a lot of them do. And they also have sponsors who might be willing to buy your books. I'm going to talk about that momentarily. But if you get involved in a nonprofit that reaches your target audience, so this is key, right? Their Go Red Foundation from the American Heart Association is heart health for women. And in fact, we have a member of our community, Donna Hartley, who's been a speaker for them for many years. They pay her to come in and speak at their meetings all over the country, and then she's able to sell her books at those events. So it's a double win because she gets a speaker fee and she gets to sell her books. And her books, by the way, are one is a memoir about she had a collapsed heart valve. So, how can you tie your book in to a nonprofit where there's a great alignment? And if you find that nonprofit, get involved, join the board, write for their newsletter or their magazine or their blog. If they have a podcast, apply to be a guest, offer to do webinars, speak at the chapter meetings and the national events. If there's a really great alignment with your target audience, you might even do a tour and speak at a lot of nonprofits have chapter meetings across the country or even internationally. You could also do some kind of fundraiser and split the proceeds from the book sales. So maybe if you're writing about aging dog care, maybe you team up with a local dog shelter and maybe they even put a rack of books at the front of the adoption center and you split the proceeds with them. There's also getting sponsors to gift your books, whether it's to the nonprofit members or people who attend their events. My pal Carl Palchuk has tons of sponsorship deals with tech companies. He writes for IT service providers and creates a setup fee of $1,500 per book to put the sponsoring company's logo on the cover, and he'll do a special print run. And then he doesn't do great discounts unless they buy 300 or more, then he gives more of a discount on those books, but he's making money off these setup fees as well. And generally what he does is he tries to add bump up the sale by offering a webinar, and he'll sell those for anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. Also, in that same realm are trade associations. So, what associations do your target readers belong to? All right. So if you've written maybe a business book, maybe it's a local business association or chambers of commerce or a national business association. It's always so fascinating to me to see how many trade associations exist in the world. Professional Disc Golf Association. There's just all kinds of I thought this one was interesting. Professional Association of Caregivers. I know for a fact we have members of our community who've been writing books about being caregivers. So these are potential targets for you to, again, get involved, speak at their events, that type of thing. And then there's corporate contacts or larger companies. So, what companies reach your target audience? If you write books for women, Dove is very women's empowerment focused. Maybe or like the spas, the big Canyon Ranch, Miraval, the big fancy spas might be a great target audience for you. They could sell your books in their gift shop, or you could do an event there or do a webinar for them. See where I'm going with this? So figuring out which organizations, companies, trade associations, and nonprofits reach your potential target readers. And then there's social media groups. I had to look up Labradoodles because where I live in Folsom, I call it the land of labradoodles. When we go to the farmer's market, I count labradoodles. You guys, there's so many. I'm more of a rescue person, but hey, they're cute, right? So I look up on Facebook for a labradoodle group. There are 68,000 members. So what social media groups reach your target audience? Should you be getting involved there? Maybe offering to do a book giveaway, connecting in those groups, or asking for beta readers for your book. Find the groups that reach your target audience or start your own group. That's what I love. And I don't know if you've heard about these trendy groups called Are We Dating the Same Guy? It's sad and entertaining. It's people putting out questions about people they're going on online dates with, and then you find out, oh, this guy's actually married, this guy's a scammer. They're sadly fairly entertaining. All right, so next up, review copies of your book, and you can send out print copies, but you can also send out digital copies of your book. This was a strategy I love. This book came out quite some time ago, over 15 years. I was sitting in a local business networking group meeting, BNI group meeting, and the person who was leading the chapter meeting of BNI held up this book by Michael Port and said, "Oh, look what I received. Book Yourself Solid. And it's a great read. I'm going to pass it around and you guys can take turns borrowing it," or people were immediately ordering it because he held it up and recommended it. And what Michael Port did was he mailed review copies to the chapter leader for each chapter of BNI across the country. There's dozens of them, maybe hundreds. I'm not sure. There's a lot of them. Now imagine how valuable that is because it's a fairly inexpensive advertising strategy. And then you have that situation where the guy leading our chapter with 30 people in it held up the book, gave it a rave review, passed it around for people to look at it. People inevitably bought the book. It was a great strategy, and this book sold really, really well. And I really suspect it had something to do with that. So, who can you send out your review copies to? There's those nonprofits, the trade associations, the companies, there's podcast hosts, bloggers, anyone with influence that reaches your target audience. I would suggest you offer them a review copy. If you mention companies in your book, if you mention any people in your book, make sure you send them a copy. That's an honor to be mentioned or complimented in somebody's book. So send them a copy, maybe with a note of thanks. This is where handwritten notes can help you stand out. If you want to get your book into colleges, offer review copies to college professors who would teach your subject or your book would fit into their classes. Now, you can send the actual copies out. If you're wanting to rein in your budget a little bit, you could reach out and ask if they would like a review copy and then follow it up when they say yes. So that actually creates what we call a warm lead when you reach out and ask. And if they say yes, then you can follow up in a few weeks to say, hey, how did you like the book? I mean, I don't have to tell you, college book sales are great. They're repeated every semester, and they can be a great place for you. Once you land one, you can potentially use that to promote to other schools. Certainly, if you're aiming to be a speaker, review copies to anyone who's booking speakers, great strategy. Really remember that the word authority starts with author. And as an author, that really elevates your credibility, especially with those booking speakers. Anyone who's in the speaking industry knows speakers need to have a book. It helps you get booked for gigs. It also can be sold at the back of the room. There's lots of benefits to it. Now I want to take you down the path of some old school advertising that I personally still really love and recommend. Postcard campaigns. Now, not enough people are doing these today or recommending them, but think about when you go through your stack of mail, you can't ignore a postcard. Like your eye is gonna might glance over it, but it's gonna pay attention to what it's about versus something stuffed in an envelope. Postcards are inexpensive to print, inexpensive to mail, and you could do this as a strategy to offer review copies of your book or just to promote that the book is available if you're sending it to the right recipients. So that gets back to who reaches your readers and can you send postcards to let them know about your book or offer that review copy. Several years back, we had an attorney in our Sacramento area, a family law attorney who had actually authored a book, a parenting guide. And she sent copies out to the local therapists in town that she thought could recommend her parenting book. And what happened was they connected with her and they ended up referring her not only book sales, but clients for her family law practice, which was an unintended benefit. She actually grew one of the largest family law practices in town just by sending out copies. She also did postcards. So, postcard campaigns, very inexpensive as far as advertising goes. And you can purchase mailing lists for specific professions. You could purchase mailing lists for CEOs of tech companies. You could purchase all the dentists or orthodontists in a single state. You can get very granular with the type of data that you want to acquire. This is one of many data houses. Data Axle is a very popular service for acquiring mailing lists. So check that out if you want to do postcard campaigns. So I would recommend that you take some time to brainstorm the community leaders or the professions, the people that you want to reach out to or send postcards to. You don't have to buy a list. You can go and look up that information on your own and then create and print your postcards. I think Vistaprint is kind of a fallback for a lot of people. I prefer PS Print, psprint.com is my preferred vendor for printing stuff like postcards and bookmarks. PS Print would probably be a little less expensive than Vistaprint. And a lot of these services also will do the mailing for you. So if you provide them with the mailing list, they'll mail your postcards out for you. So that's an option as well. All right, let's talk about paid advertising on some of the top social media networks, Facebook and Instagram in particular, because this is where a lot of authors are spending time and a lot of your readers are probably spending time. I will say I'm not a fan of these ads just to promote your book. I think it is really hard to earn back your ad spend based on how small our profit margins are on books. So I prefer to use these ads to grow the email list using free giveaways, promoting our webinars. I would imagine some of you are here today because you saw we had Facebook ads running about this webinar. But one strategy that we do see can be effective are these free book plus shipping offers. So what you're doing is you're saying get a free copy of my new book, just pay the shipping rate, right? And so maybe your book costs $20, but then you're going to charge them $5.99 for shipping. Now, it's potentially a losing deal or maybe a break even depending on what you're paying for your books. But if you look at current shipping rates, media mail, a lot of people don't realize, is the least expensive mail option for books and specific only to books and CDs and DVDs. Media mail was created specifically for shipping books. And if you compare that, $4.47, this is a 14-ounce package from California to Florida. Now, the next cheapest option is the package, the 4-day ground advantage is $7. So it's a $3 savings basically to send by media mail. It takes a little longer. But this is how, going back, they make these rates work. So maybe you charge $6.99 for shipping and you've bought so many of your books, you can get them for a couple of dollars, or maybe you're only losing a dollar or two on this deal. The upside of getting books in readers' hands is that if you've done your job and the book is recommendation worthy, hopefully they're going to write the review on Amazon. And when they like a book, they're going to tell their friends about it. So the idea here is to get your book in the hands of as many people as possible. Are you going to make money this way? No. But are you going to gain readers who potentially will help build your reviews, talk about your book? Yes, that is the goal here. All right. So if this is a strategy you decide to pursue, you would need a landing page to request the free book, charge your shipping fee. What a lot of authors who use this strategy do is they'll offer that free shipping and then they'll offer some sort of upsell. Well, would you like this bonus report for $9.99 or my mini course or this collection of worksheets, something like that? And if you can upsell enough to offset your cost of advertising and printing the book, then it's more of a winning proposition. A lot of these people, by the way, are doing this to promote some sort of business service. So for those of you who have businesses, you're doing coaching, consulting, you're speaking, you're offering classes, that's where this strategy can pay off, because getting your book in somebody's hands, if that leads to potentially getting you new clients, that is worthwhile as well. So think about that as a strategy. It's not for everybody. The other option, instead of offering to ship a book, is to give them the free digital download of your book. I love bookfunnel.com. It's a great tool where you can set up landing pages and people can download your book in the format they choose. So they can download it for Kindle, they can download it for Apple, even audiobook files. So you can set that up with BookFunnel, and I think it's $10 or $20 a month. It's a pretty inexpensive tool. So that is another option as well. Along the lines of paid advertising, here's one strategy that I think is amazing, and we've used it for the association. So having other people on Facebook, social media influencers, fellow authors, even companies go and recommend your book with a sponsored ad. So instead of you going, here's my book, please buy it, and sponsoring and paying for an ad, you get someone else who's influential and has a large audience to say, oh, I love this book, you should get it. But you pay for the ad that they are running. Okay, so you're not running the ad yourself. You're saying, hey, David Kessler, you've written a book on grief and loss. If I pay for the ad and send you a copy, would you consider endorsing the book and putting it out on your social media? I think this is brilliant. And we've done this with promoting some of our events, like the Nonfiction Writers Conference, reaching out and saying, hey, you've come to it, you've liked it. Would you be willing to put up an ad? We'll pay for it. And maybe you pay them a little bit extra just for the trouble. Great strategy. When someone else recommends a product, a book, a restaurant, anything, we're far more likely to listen than if I'm saying, hey, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, right? Someone else recommends it, you want to do it. So research the people that have influence on Facebook, on Instagram, that are reaching your target readers. See if there's any way that you can directly, personally connect with them. And even if you can't, you can always find contact information somewhere. Ask if you can sponsor an ad, make it worth their while. All right, let's continue with advertising, but also categories on Amazon are very important. So let's talk about how to maximize this. One of the first questions I get about Amazon every time I talk about it is, how do I get on the bestsellers list? Well, you can do that fairly easily, quite honestly. It's a matter of getting a large number of sales on a single day. Typically, that's tied in with the book launch. Is it exciting to have your book hit bestseller status in a category? Absolutely. It's fun. Take screenshots. You get that little bestseller tag while it's appearing on the list. But guess what, you guys? No long-term value. This doesn't help you sell books down in the long run. And I am not a fan of calling a book a bestseller just because it hit the top of a category in Amazon. Best-selling books used to exclusively mean New York Times. And so this term has been eroded. And also, the fact is, you can hit a bestseller status in a small category with as few as 20 book sales. So it's just not a term I recommend or strategy I necessarily recommend. With that said, using keywords and categories and hitting bestsellers and staying there can help you sell books. Mark Paul, his memoir, The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Sold, has actually surpassed 60,000 book sales, and he has done nothing but optimize his Amazon categories and keywords and run Amazon ads. Look at this. So our goal is not to hit the bestseller list for a day or an hour. It is to hover in the top 10 of at least one subcategory on Amazon. That is good visibility. So if I'm someone who reads about horse books and I go and look for a book in that category and your book is hovering in the top 10, you can darn well bet I'm going to click on it, right? This is our goal, not 5 minutes as a bestseller, but as an ongoing top 10. And the thing about these category sales, a large category like memoir To hit the top of memoir, you have to sell hundreds of books. To hit the top of a tiny category like mental health memoir, I'm not even sure if that's a category, but let's say it is, then you might only need to sell 20 or 30 books in a day to reach the top of that category. Now, imagine if you could maintain that and you're selling 10 or 20 books a day, every day, then you're hovering in the top 10 of these smaller categories. Now, when you're looking at a book page on Amazon, there are two different types of rank. There's the overall bestseller rank for the whole Amazon site. The lower that number, the better the book is selling. So in this example, 10,000, I'm going to show you how that equates to sales in a moment. That's for the whole Amazon site, how this book ranks against every other book on Amazon. Then you have your category rank. So every book on Amazon can be enrolled in three different categories. And as the author, you get to choose those categories. So in this example, the book is number 1 in horse racing, number 108 in sports fiction, number 352 in the overall memoirs category. Now, the bestseller rank for the whole site, this example has its bestseller rank is 10,031. And the general estimate, we don't know for sure, but we have to estimate. But if the rank is between 10,000 to 50,000, you're probably selling somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 books a day. And when you're looking at other books and researching their competition, this gives you an idea of how well they're selling. Now, the category sales are really what we need to focus on, and not that overall site rank, because what we want to do is figure out what are the best subcategories for our books and how can we hover in the top 10 of those categories. So here's an example, number 1 in horse racing, number 1 in the Kindle store horse racing, number 5 of biographies of organized crime. Now, this is Mark Paul's greatest gambling story. It's about how he bet on a filly to win the Kentucky Derby, a long shot bet. This was back in the 80s. He had to collect his prize, and it turned out it was from the Mexican drug cartel. He didn't realize that's how he had placed the bet. So, organized crime, he's figured out these are the categories where his target readers are spending time. Now, if you go into Amazon and you click on biographies and memoirs, it opens up a whole list of subcategories. So you can go from community and culture, that opens up the categories of women, Black and African American, people with disabilities. So it goes on and on. These are Amazon subcategories. And if you can find up to 3 subcategories where your book reaches the right target audience, that is your opportunity to hover in the top 10. Okay. Now, also, when you're doing this, each edition of your book can have different categories. Your paperback, your hardcover, your Kindle edition, and your audiobook can all be in different categories on Amazon and have different rankings as a result. So when you're figuring out your categories, make sure you're looking for each and setting up for each edition of your book. And they're all different here, right? Now, conversely, Mark's greatest competition is the legendary Seabiscuit and Secretariat books. And Mark's book is, I think, about 5 years old now. These books have been around for much longer, but he consistently beats them. And he beats them because he's using Amazon ads. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But look at their bestseller ranks, right? They're still doing well. They're still renowned books that people seek out. But Mark's beating them with his, by the way, self-published memoir, you guys. So this is possible. Now, I will say 60,000 books sold is not typical. If you're writing smaller niche books, there are not 60,000 people seeking out books on how to market nonfiction. That's my genre. That's just not the reality. But if you have a memoir about mental health or addiction or topics that have broader audiences, these are the things that are possible as well. And while you're hovering in those at number 1 in particular, you get this tag on your book page, and it's just a great way to help it stand out. Now, for your own book categories, you can edit your categories. If you're published through KDP, you go into your KDP account and you edit your categories. If you're not published through KDP, you can go to Author Central on through Amazon, click the Contact Us, send them 3 categories for each ISBN, and they will update them. Usually happens within a couple of days. It's literally that simple. And you can do up to 3 categories. They used to allow us to do 10. They're not doing that anymore, but you can request 3 categories. So go through and research similar books. And that is your homework from this section, to go and get on Amazon and research similar books to yours. Take note of their category that they're appearing in for each edition, for the paperback, the hardcover, the ebook, and the audiobook. And then once you get all that research compiled, figure out which subcategories you want to add your books to and make that request. This alone could really help you get more visibility and sales for your book, and it costs you nothing. Now, Amazon ads are not free, but what a lot of people don't realize is that they're pay per click based. You only pay when someone clicks on your ad. Your ad can appear, but you don't pay until somebody clicks on it. So the goal is, when you advertise on Amazon, when a user clicks, you want to convert the majority of those clicks into sales, right? And those clicks can cost as little as 25 cents. Now, for very competitive categories like business leadership, for example, those clicks are going to get expensive. They're going to be $1, $1.50, even $2. So we want to look for those smaller keywords. We want to look for niches that we can tap into to keep those click prices down. You can also set a daily budget. So you can decide, and what I recommend is about $10 a day. Now, that's about $300 a month in ads. However, keep in mind, if your ads are converting, you should be earning much of that back, if not all of it, plus profit. That probably won't happen overnight. It takes time to build up some momentum with Amazon ads. However, that's a great minimum starting budget, and it at minimum you should earn some of that back in those first couple of months, and then as your ads get tuned, hopefully you're earning that back and then some. So for Amazon ads, they're based on keywords. You want to think about, what keywords are people typing in to find a book like yours? Book about running, memoir about divorce, the history of Monterey, the city of Monterey, whatever it is. Think about the terms that your readers are typing in to find you. Other keyword phrases would be similar authors, or authors who people would look for that your book would also appeal to their readers, and other relevant products they might search for. Back to that example of aging dog care. Maybe when somebody searches for dog food, you want your book to appear. So those are some of the things you can do. So Mark Paul's book, some examples of his keywords: horse racing, memoir about horses, Seabiscuit, Laura Hillebrand. When anybody types those in, he wants his book to appear as an option. So hopefully that makes sense. You're trying to tap into that. There's a great tool to do this called Publisher Rocket. It is not free, and the price keeps changing. I think it might be around $100. This is an affiliate link, or you can just search Publisher Rocket if you want a tool that will help save you time figuring out keywords and categories. It is a great tool to do that. Another great tip that I love: if you're on Amazon, type in your phrase, book about running, memoir, divorce, online dating, whatever your topic is, and then look below to see what search terms Amazon recommends. These are going to be the most popular related search terms. Jot those down. Those become your keywords. That's free research right there. And then Mark Paul's strategy, look at this, like bestsellers. 4 of his books appear in one list, on the horse racing list. So you want to figure out your best categories for each edition. He has hundreds of keywords for his ads. So he's tapping into lots of different types of searches on Amazon. He's also enrolled his Kindle book in the Kindle Unlimited program. I am not a big fan of this program generally for nonfiction. It does really well more for fiction or memoir and narrative nonfiction. So if you're writing memoir, narrative nonfiction, you might want to look into enrolling in Kindle Unlimited. What that does is it makes your book available for free download to people who subscribe to these unlimited Kindle books, and you get paid based on the number of pages that they read. You don't earn as much revenue from it, but it can boost sales for narrative and memoir. Ads tips: choose your categories, lots of relevant keywords, set your daily budget. And if you want help setting these up, there are two services that I recommend: booksgosocial.com and bookgeeksmedia.com are both service providers that will help you set up your ads. All right, so brainstorm your keywords, make a list of your competing author titles and names because those all become your keywords, and use these for setting up your trial of Amazon ads. And now let's talk about selling to libraries. Just a reminder, I am going to take your questions at the end. If you have them, pop them in the Q&A box. I will stay and take all your questions. So library sales, don't overlook this opportunity. When you sell to libraries, oftentimes libraries are part of a network. So you might get into one library and then 10 other libraries buy it as a result. And then readers who go to libraries, if I really like a book that I've borrowed from the library, I'm going to turn around and buy that book or buy the audio version or buy the ebook version. Library books lead to sales. What libraries want in particular are niche titles. So if you have really unique topics that aren't heavily covered, that is a great advantage when it comes to selling to libraries. They do like to see an index at the back of a book. That is not true for all nonfiction, but if you have a heavily referenced book, maybe a science or medical book or a finance guide, those librarians do like to see indexes in books. They want to see a spine. They will not do spiral bound. You can't see what the book is if it's a spiral binding. So you need a spine. And then they're not going to take workbooks, coloring books, things with fill in because they don't want library patrons writing in the books, right? So they're looking for standard trade paperbacks and hardcovers. They do, by the way, also buy ebooks and audiobooks. Now, if you're an existing author, bookmark this link: search.worldcat.org. World Catalog is the directory of books being currently stocked by libraries. You can go search your book and see if it's in any libraries. I did not do a library marketing campaign for the nonfiction book publishing plan, but when I search, I find it's in 95 libraries, which is awesome. And that's with no effort. Imagine if I put effort into it, right? So go search this World Catalog and see if your book is in any libraries. If it is, that is valuable because if you have subsequent other books, you can reach out and say, hey, you already have book A. Would you like to get book B? And they will also tell you exactly which libraries are carrying your books. You don't have to remarket to them. But how do libraries find books to buy? They're reading editorial reviews. They're just like the rest of us. They're looking for buzz. They're looking to hear about it on social media. They're looking at reviews in publications or even their local newspapers. They're paying attention to Amazon bestseller lists, and not the 5 minutes, but the ones that are hovering there. And I've met several authors who've had great success marketing to libraries with postcards. Look, the job of a librarian is to stock the library with interesting books. So sending out postcards to make them aware of your book can be really beneficial and lead to sales. Libraries also very much buy books based on editorial reviews of your book. So I've listed some of the main players for you here. Kirkus is probably one of the top in the publishing industry. Kirkus Reviews. It is a fee-based review. There's Blue Ink Review, there's Booklist Online, and the American Library Association has a ton of publications. They have a ton of programs. You can pay to advertise. You can buy library mailing lists from them. And so there's also Publishers Weekly is another big industry player. There's Book Life, there's Clarion, and then there's Forward. They do have a free review system. Now, these ones that offer the free reviews, you have to apply. There's no guarantee. And generally, they want to see these books prior to release. Now, if you're paying for reviews, it could be post publication, but each of them have their own guidelines. So make sure you check. Yes, I'm going to send you these slides with the recording later today. Now, I mentioned earlier, ask your peers and friends and family to go request your book at libraries. Some libraries have these systems. In California, it's called the Zip Books program. Now, if I want to borrow a book from my local library and they don't have it in stock, I can go request it through this Zip Books program. They're going to buy the book and drop ship it to me. And then I return it to the library and it goes on a shelf. Imagine that, you guys. So, this is obviously for libraries that are well funded, but most libraries have budgets to acquire new books. And if people are asking for your book, then they're likely going to acquire one or more copies of that book. So I mentioned the American Library Association is a huge organization. They have tons of advertising programs. They have magazines and publications and newsletters that they put out. They've got academic libraries, law libraries, LGBTQ libraries, science and technology, grade school, college, so many different types of publications that you can potentially market to. Sorry, this is an awkward transition, but my point is, with all of this that I just blazed through, is this is all possible. You can do this. So some of these strategies are free, some of them are paid depending on your budget. But the point is that with book marketing, we want to plant three seeds every day. It might be hand mailing out a postcard. It might be writing a blog post. It might be joining and getting involved in an online group or researching trade associations. Consider each of those a seed that you're planting and watering each day. And if you plant three seeds in your garden every day and water them, what happens with time? You grow a garden. The same thing applies to your book marketing. If you plant three seeds every day, and that could take you 15 to 30 minutes, with time, those efforts add up. They add up to big sales. So I would love to take your questions. I'm sure you have some. I went through a lot of information. Please pop it in the Q&A box, and I am going to come back and take those questions. I will stay as long as it takes. I'll stay over time if needed. I know this is a long session today. So please post them in Q&A. And before we get there, please give me 2 minutes to just share with you. I have a new course starting next week. This is our most popular course, the Book Marketing Master Course. I think this is the third year that I'm teaching it. I love teaching it. So everything you heard today was almost like a tiny little appetizer. We cover all of these subjects and so many more in greater depth in this 6-week course. It's running on Tuesdays. So it begins on January 30th, 13th, and it runs through March. And you get a copy of this workbook mailed to you for our US participants. We give you the digital if you're outside of the US. And really, no matter where you are, if you're a new author, if you're an experienced author, my personal guarantee is you will gain value from this course. We will always issue a refund if you're not satisfied. Here's what we cover each week. You're going to own your niche. You're going to learn how to carve out the content that you're going to share. We're going to talk about author websites, social media, blogging, how to plan your book launch, your next launch, how to build a launch team and work with beta readers. And by the way, if your book is already out, all of these strategies apply. And then we talk about publicity, how to get on podcasts and radio and television. We talk more about Amazon and really fine tuning your Amazon optimization, how to leverage keywords and update your book sales page and optimize for your Amazon Author Central. And then we talk about book launches and marketing and all the strategies that kind of keep all your marketing wheels turning. We also have an optional professional certification program. So if you're a publishing industry pro, maybe you're a book coach or you work on book marketing or you're a virtual assistant, these programs have been really popular with our publishing pros. You can get certified, and then once you complete 6 quizzes, we list you in our directory of certified professionals, and these folks are definitely getting job leads. So this is an optional add-on to the course. So the course, we do weekly live Zooms just like this for 90 minutes, lots of Q&A. It's a very interactive experience. Recordings and slides are shared every week. You don't have to attend live, though it's great when you can. Get the workbook. There's weekly homework. You don't have to do it, but I encourage it. And then we have over 100 pages of bonus content, templates, reports, all kinds of stuff that really helps you become a marketing pro. I think we probably have some marketing students on this webinar today. If you attended the course or if you've attended any of my courses and could give us a shout out in the chat, I would appreciate it. So it's just an extending an invite Tuesdays, January 13th through the 17th. It is a 6 week, really intensive course. And I promise you, by the end of it, you're going to really have a much better grasp on book marketing. You don't have to do everything I teach you, but you can pick the strategies that align and feel right for you and use those. So you can get there through bookmarketingmastercourse.com. That'll reroute you. It's really done through Nonfiction Authors Association.com. You can put your phone up and grab this QR code. And one thing I wanted to just throw in today, we have a report on library sales. So I touched a very high level of what's available to sell to libraries today. If you register for this course today or you're already registered, we will send you the library report. So it's a 12-page report. It gets a much greater detail about ways that you can promote to libraries and work with the American Library Association. If you're already registered, just send an email to help@nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. Let them know you're registered and you want the library report. And if you're not yet registered and you register today, we will send you that report. So again, bookmarketingmastercourse.com. I would love to have you join me. I love teaching this class. It is a ton of fun, and I promise you will leave with lots of new information. All right, let's get to your questions. If you can pop them in the Q&A, I would be happy to start tackling them. So here we go. Maria says, do these apply to traditionally published books or just self-published? I'm not sure what you're referring to, but basically everything I talked about today applies to both traditionally and self-published books. How do you reach out to influencers, Melanie? Great question. So you'd be amazed. Even celebrities can be reachable. A lot of them read their own direct messages in social media. That's how I've gotten a lot of book endorsements, is reaching out to authors through DMs on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case may be. I mean, big celebrities check their own DMs, seriously. But certainly look at their websites. Gretchen Rubin, right, it checks her own emails. Seth Godin checks his own emails. You'd be amazed. So the contact information is out there. Now, with that said, any author who's currently on the New York Times bestsellers list is not going to be reachable. They are inundated with opportunities. James Clear and his Atomic Habits, he is not available. But if an author was on the bestseller list 3 or 5 years ago and they're not in great demand, they're much more reachable. So keep that in mind as well. But I would say social media DMs, look at their websites. We're currently booking speakers for our upcoming Nonfiction Writers Conference. I go through either the media contact at the publishing house or through their speakers bureaus. So lots of ways to reach these folks. Geraldine, how do you estimate the size of Amazon categories? That is a great question. That is difficult to do without a tool. So I would say in general, if it's niche, if it's a subcategory, it's going to be easier to reach the top. If it's a big broad category like memoir, business, those are big, health and wellness, those are big categories. But if it's a subcategory, it's going to be easier. If you really want that data, that's where Publisher Rocket, that tool, will give you that data. It tells you how competitive each category is. Dinah, what about giving copies to libraries? You could do that. You certainly can offer them copies. I think as an author, you deserve to also be compensated for your work. But if you want to give copies and that's not important to you, absolutely, you can give them copies. Meet the librarian. They might like you to come in and do a book signing event. James, would you suggest a hybrid approach in the case of a first-time author who also does marketing and I'm not sure what you mean by hybrid approach. To what, James? If you could write in and expand on that, that would be helpful. Hey there, Tom. Is there a free and expensive application to find out how many total followers an individual or entity has? So I would say look at their social media following. Honestly, that's a great indicator. Look at the number of reviews a book has. Generally, the more reviews, the better the book has been selling or has sold. Those are kind of things to look for. James, in general, what would you say are the three most impactful public presentations an author can do? I think that the presentation topic is going to depend on what your book is about and the target audience you're reaching. So, really, as nonfiction writers, we are all about serving our target audience. So, whether you write prescriptive, some sort of how to, or you have narrative nonfiction that has a theme. So, maybe you have a memoir about your parents' divorce or living with an alcoholic family. Those are topics that you would then tie into the target audience. So maybe it's a memoir about leaving an abusive marriage and you're speaking to women's shelters. What would be most valuable to those women? How to tips on how to take those next steps and how to rebuild your life, right? So it comes back to what are the interests, needs, and challenges of your target audience, and how can you serve them through the content you create, whether that's a presentation, a blog post, podcast episode, webinar, right? That's the most impactful content is meeting the interests, needs, and challenges of your target audience. Miriam says, I would like my books in libraries, but I do hesitate because the upside doesn't seem great. You get less than $3 per book. If the library buys it, then people get it for free. The book is in more people's hands. Okay, Miriam, I'm glad you're asking this because I think a lot of authors are afraid to give their books away for free. And look, I can take a book off my shelf and loan it to three friends, right? But flip that around. Really, our goal is to get our books in the most hands as possible. Whether we earn income from those sales or we're giving them away for free, if you've written a book that really moves readers and that they are going to turn around and tell three friends about it, every free book you give away has value, right? So think about it in those terms, not that you're only making $3, not that people are going to get to read it for free, but that the more eyeballs you have on your book, the more reviews the book is going to get, the more recommendations the book is going to get, the more opportunities are going to come your way. Trina, yes, slides and the recording will be out later today. How do you promote an idea that is unpopular, like less gun use in America or climate change? Well, DJ, you go to the where the fellow thinkers are spending their time. So you go to political groups that agree with you or are open to hearing what you have to say. That's how you do it. You go find your target audience. Where are they spending time? Meet their interests, needs, and challenges. Bruce, for the free pay shipping offer, what do you use to collect shipping costs? So, Bruce, you need some sort of e-commerce solution that could be as simple as setting up PayPal button to pay for the shipping costs. It could be a shopping cart system. I really like Thrivecart. There's Shopify, there's WooCommerce, there's lots of different shopping cart solutions. But for your first product, PayPal button would probably work just fine. Lisa, how do you offer the Marketing Master Course? We deliver it live just like this. Although in courses, everyone's on the screen. We're meeting style, not webinar style, which is more of a broadcast. So it's interactive. We're all on screen. We connect. We hear about each other's books. It's a lot of fun. I love teaching this class so much. I only run the course live once a year. So this is the only chance to attend it for 2026. Eva Maria, when offering bulk sales, what discounts do you recommend? Does the percentage taken off the ordinary order price depend on the quantity of books the organization wants to buy? So I would say this is very subjective, how much you want to offer as a discount for your books. My example I shared with Carl Polachek sells books to tech companies. They're not in it for a deep discount, right? They're in it for the value the book brings. So he doesn't really need to incentivize them a lot with discounts. Maybe you're reaching an audience that does care about deep discounts. In that case, you need to be more aggressive with your discounting. I will say, as a rule, retailers today, like your Amazon and bookstores, are expecting 50 to 55% off your cover price. That's what they're acquiring your books for. And you've got to have a pricing system that still leaves you enough money to make a profit. But I would tier your pricing maybe based on 100 copies is 10% off, 200 copies is 15, so on. But again, very subjective in what you're comfortable with and what your audience is willing to pay. Hey, Callie, I'd like to learn more about the professional certification. Yeah, so on the course page, Callie, it has a description of our certification program. So check that out. It's an optional add-on to the course for publishing industry pros or people who want to be. We're getting rave reviews for that program. It is really fun. Hey there, Dorothy. Where do you get postcards? And should they be blank? No, so I would say, Dorothy, you want to design some sort of design for your postcard and then order them from a print house service. I happen to know you're in Canada, so you probably have a local printer there that would be helpful. They might even help you set up the design of your postcard. If you're Canva savvy, you could do it in Canva and then you upload your design to a Vistaprint or a PS Print or other print solution that prints your postcards. They're relatively inexpensive to print. I mean, I have them everywhere. I use them for all kinds of things. I print postcards just to write handwritten notes on the back and tuck them in books. So I love postcards. What does it mean when WorldCat says your book has 4 editions and 38 libraries? Well, congrats, your book is in 38 libraries. The 4 editions, it could be that it's got the paperback, the audiobook, the ebook, the hardcover, or it could be that somebody entered your book record more than one time. So I wouldn't focus so much on the editions, but the fact is you're in 38 libraries. That's fabulous. Congratulations. And those 38 libraries, which it should list for you, are where you should go and promote your next books. And you can say, you have my previous book, here's the new one. Hey, Dick, the email address to get the 12-page library report, if you're already registered for the course, is help@nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. If you register today, we will send you that report as well. And it's help@nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. Hybrid approach to how an author markets their book. James, I'm still not super clear. A hybrid approach. Really, with book marketing, it's different for everyone. The strategies that you want to use is different from the strategies that maybe I want to use. There are tons of options, which is what we cover in the course, but then you want to pick the ones that align with the things you're most interested in doing, the things that best suit your target audience. I did tons of speaking. I mean, there were years I spoke at 40 events. It was exhausting. I don't do as much of that anymore. I do way more webinars. So that type of thing is figuring out what aligns with what you want to be doing and where your target audience is spending time. How important are sell sheets for library and bookstores? Colleen, great question. Sell sheets are certainly helpful. A sell sheet is basically a flyer that describes your book, tells them about the publisher details. That absolutely adds a level of professionalism to your marketing materials. I don't think it's 100% necessary, but it's helpful. If you're doing a postcard campaign, you can't tuck a sell sheet in there, but they're certainly useful. Carl, TEDx, community-sponsored TEDx affiliated speaking events. You can potentially organize an event, put yourself and others on the panel. For TEDx, Carl, we almost always cover TEDx events at the Nonfiction Writers Conference. We've covered it for the last several years. Our next conference is this May 6th through 8th, I believe. We haven't, or 7th through 9th, we haven't fully announced the lineup yet, but more than likely we'll be covering how to land a TEDx talk at this year's event as well. And it's an online 3-day online conference every year. Joseph says, does it make sense to send the final PDF of my manuscript to my beta readers and ask for honest review as a beta reader? Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you guys, I know we're over time. If you can't stay, I understand. You'll get the recording later, but I will stay and answer all the questions. So thank you for joining me. If you have to go, I get it, but would love for you to stick around. So does it make sense to send the final PDF of the manuscript for honest review? Yes, that's one of the benefits of beta readers is that you're giving them early access to your book. And the goal is that if they like it, they'll be your earliest book reviewers on Goodreads and on Amazon. Do the number of reviews affect how Amazon shows books? Yes, it does. So nobody knows for sure what Amazon's algorithms are and how they display books. But we believe that the more reviews, the better, for one. But there is some turning point, and it might be somewhere between 70 and 90 reviews of a book where Amazon goes, oh, this book is doing well, and it starts giving it more visibility. So yes, more reviews is better. That should be an ongoing goal for all of us, is to be getting more book reviews. Colleen, can you specify if you offer a return policy for wholesale purchases for libraries versus bookstores? Yeah, so the return policies in the book industry are very frustrating. I don't know of another industry. So here's the deal. When a bookstore, let's say a brick and mortar store like Barnes and Noble or any brick and mortar store orders copies of your books, that's great. But if those books don't sell in 30 to 60 days, they can return them for a full refund in any condition. That is how this industry works. It makes no sense. If Nordstrom doesn't sell out of a line of jeans, they don't get to send them back to the jean maker. They get to put them on the clearance rack and sell them off to Marshalls, right? But in the publishing industry, books are fully refundable to retailers. And there's no way to say refunds are available only to libraries, but not bookstores through book distribution. So it's a big risky proposition to accept to accept returns for books. And you really have to weigh if you're willing to take that risk. What kind of info goes on a postcard? A great question, Mary. So not a lot of space on a postcard. So a really tight one paragraph summary of what the book is about. Capture niched subjects are really great. You want to put the publisher information, the date of publication, the number of pages. These are all the details that the industry pays attention to. How long is the book? How do you acquire the book? Website link, contact information. All of that has to fit on that postcard, and price and retail price. Yana says, I asked my local library if they could purchase a particular book, but they said they couldn't because it wasn't offered with the main distributors they use. The book was published by a small publisher. Is this a common challenge? No, I would say that is not a common challenge. If you are published through Ingram Spark, Lulu, KDP, all of those books should be available to libraries and bookstores to purchase because they're distributed through Ingram. Ingram is the largest supplier of books to bookstores, libraries, all the retailers. So provided you've published through one of those platforms, your book should be available to those stores. You do want to make sure that it's priced properly, that you have a discount that is retailer friendly. So 55%, unfortunately, is what they're looking for. Did I do it? I think that was our last question. I haven't gone through the chat because it's enormous and I will get lost in there. If you have any remaining questions, throw them in the Q&A. In the meantime, I'll just remind you, book marketing course starts next week. You can find it at bookmarketingcourse.com or go to nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. I would love to have you join me there. We'll give you that library report when you register. I hope this was helpful and that you're all leaving here with some fresh ideas. Did we do that? No more questions from 203. I don't know what that means, Lily. Did I miss a question? If so, feel free to drop it in there. I thought I got them all. So yeah, and I'm just seeing the chat fly by here, but some libraries do not buy from small publishers. That really is going to depend. And I would say never put Amazon Digital Services as your publisher. You need to have a legit publishing company name. There's so much we cover, you guys, in the marketing class. We literally had a little tiny appetizer today. So if you want to learn more, I'd love to see you in class. Please consider joining me. And you have indefinite access to the course materials. Yes. So when you sign up for class, it's not limited. You can download all the recordings, all the materials. It's all yours to keep for all eternity. So thank you all. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a great day and I hope to see many of you in class. Thank you again so much for joining me. Watch your inbox for the slides and the recording in a couple of hours. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you for attending this webinar by the Nonfiction Authors Association. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you need support navigating the complexities of the publishing industry and want to reach your author goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com.